Ever look at a forest or even just a pond and wonder how it all works? It can seem like total chaos, right? But it turns out there's this incredible hidden set of rules that governs everything. So today we're going to pull back the curtain on the natural world and see exactly what makes it tick. So yeah, what are these rules? How does nature decide who wins, who loses, and how everything stays in balance? Well, let's dive in and start breaking it all down.
Okay, first things first. To understand any environment, you've got to sort everything into two basic piles. It's super simple, really. You have the living stuff and the non-living stuff. That's our starting point.
You know, a good way to think about it is like a play. Every play needs a stage, right? The lights, the set, the backdrop, all that scenery. And then, of course, you need the actors. We're going to start by looking at the stage itself. Now, in science speak, that scenery is called abiotic factors. A means not, bio means life, so it's literally the not living parts. These are all the physical things that set the scene before any of the real action can even begin.
And what are we talking about here? The real basics. Sunlight, which is basically the power source for the whole show. Water, air, the temperature, the soil. I mean, without these things, there is no show. It's the absolute foundation that all life is built on. All right, so we've got our stage set. Now who are the actors? This is where biotic factors come in. These are all the living things, and hey, even the things that were once living that are moving around on our stage. And we've got a huge cast of characters. It's not just the obvious ones like plants and animals. You've also got the tiny behind-the-scenes crew, like bacteria and fungi. They might be small, but trust me, they play some of the most important roles in the whole story.
So let's just recap real quick. Abiotic, the non-living stage and scenery. Biotic, the living cast of characters. Simple as that. You can't have one without the other, right? They're totally connected, and you need both for any ecosystem to work.
Okay, so we have our stage, and we have our actors. Now it's time for the good part, the plot. How do all these living things actually interact with each other? What's the story they're all part of?
Exactly. What is the script? Because it's not just a free-for-all out there. Nature has these established relationships, these specific ways that organisms connect with each other. And that's what we're going to get into next. Let's start with the most dramatic one, predation. This is the classic hunter and hunted story we all know. One organism is looking for lunch, and for the other one, well, it's about to be a really, really bad day. But, you know, not all conflict is about getting eaten. Sometimes it's just a struggle between equals. This is competition. It happens anytime two or more living things are trying to get their hands on the same limited resource, whether it's food, water, or a place to live. You can picture it easily, right? Two lions fighting over territory. That's competition, plain and simple. But it can be much quieter, too. Think about trees in a dense forest, each one stretching just a little bit taller, trying to get more sunlight than its neighbor. That's competition, too. All right, moving on from all the fighting, let's talk about something way more fascinating, and that's symbiosis. This is where two totally different species decide to team up and form a really close, long-term relationship. And honestly, this is where nature gets super creative. So, symbiosis basically comes in three main flavors. First, you've got mutualism. That's a total win-win. Like a little fish cleaning a turtle's shell. The fish gets a meal and the turtle gets a free spot A. Then there's commensalism. This is more of a win-whatever situation. A barnacle hangs out on a whale, it gets a free ride to filter feed, but the whale doesn't even notice. And finally, we have parasitism. This is the win-lose deal. A tick on a dog gets a blood meal, but the poor dog is just getting harmed. So we have our players, we have their interactions, but there is one final master rule that sits on top of everything else. This is the one big idea that stops any single species from just taking over the entire planet. And it's all about the limits to growth. And that brings us to this really important idea, the limiting factor. You can think of it like nature's emergency brake. It's basically anything out there that stops a population from growing forever and ever. It puts a ceiling on things. And these factors are all pretty common sense when you think about it. If there's not enough food to go around or not enough water, well, a population just can't keep growing. If there's nowhere to live or too many predators chasing you, yeah, that's going to keep your numbers down. See, it really all boils down to this one simple truth. How many resources are available, food, water, space, you name it, that's the master control knob for how big any population can get.
And it's a pretty direct relationship, as you'd expect. When there are tons of resources, a population gets the green light to grow. But as soon as those resources get scarce, that population is going to shrink. It's a natural cycle. So let's pull it all together now. How do all these different ideas, the abiotic stage, the biotic actors, their interactions, and these limiting factors, how do they all weave together to create the living world we see?
Well, it builds up in layers. You start with just one single organism. Then you get a group of those same organisms living together, and boom, you have a population. And then when that population starts interacting with all the other populations and the non-living stuff around it, that's when you have a full-blown ecosystem.
And that's really the big takeaway here. Every single piece of this puzzle, from something as huge as the sun to something as small as the relationship between a bee and a flower, it all matters. They are all interconnected rules that build the entire world around us. So I'll leave you with one last question to chew on. We've seen how every single species on this planet has limiting factors that keep it in check. So what about us? Does that rule apply to humans too? And if it does, what are our limiting factors?